Excellent. It looks like we are a match on the green check. Thank you so much.
Good.
All right, we are good to go, I believe. So I will call the Tuesday, September 22, 2020 Urbandale City Council meeting to order. And ask the clerk to take roll call, please.
Blake?
Here.
Carberry Montgomery?
Here.
Obrecht?
Here.
Russell?
Here.
Hoagie?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, if you can please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. And I think at this time, it would be appropriate, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think in reading the Pledge of Allegiance and reading our character count statements, it's only appropriate that we recognize her and her lifetime of service to our country and all she accomplished for our country and for our citizens. So please ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion and a second, please?
A motion by Obrecht. Second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote. That passes, thank you. Item 3 is Citizens Forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's regular agenda. I believe we do not have anybody pre-registered, right, Nicole?
Correct.
So we will open up the phone lines to see if there's anyone that would like to address the council that's online here tonight with us. So if you are, please identify yourself and I will recognize you. Okay, hearing none, then we will move on to the adoption of the minutes. Item 4.1 is to approve the minutes from the September 8, 2020 meeting. Ask for a motion and second.
So a motion by Obrecht. Second by Hoagie.
Discussion, please vote. And that passes. And then for the September 15, 2020 lunch and learn.
The motion by Blake, second by Russell.
Discussion, please vote.
Councilmember Carberry Montgomery, it doesn't look like yours has come through quite yet. Oh, there it comes. Thank you.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Item 5 is the consent agenda. We have 20 items for approval. Ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Carberry Montgomery, second by Russell.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Thank you. All right, item 6, public hearings. The first is item 6.1, the public hearing for the proposal to enter into a development agreement for 7501 LLC for 7501 Hickman Road. The public notice for this was published in the September 12, 2020 Des Moines Register. And answer any objections to that notice is published?
There were none.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
A motion by Obrecht. Second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote.
It should be an aye, not an abstention.
Thank you.
Did mine come through?
Not yet.
Yes, it didn't come up on the screen.
All set.
Here we are. That passes. Thank you. All right, to introduce the item is our Assistant Economic Development Director, Aaron DeYoung. Aaron, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Mayor.
Give me just a moment and I will get your privileges here, Aaron.
There you go. Okay, so thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, Aaron DeYoung with the Economic Development Department. We have 2 development agreements for you tonight, and I'll talk through the first one. That is a development agreement with 7501 LLC, a very creative title by Signature Real Estate Group. This is for the former Kmart location at 7501 Hickman Road. They have, if you haven't been by there, they've done some significant improvements to the facade and the site there that is eligible for our standard TIF rebate schedule in the Westover Renewal District. The expected cost of the improvements that are being made is $1.25 million. Looking, I should know that the property is currently under contract to be sold to a California company, and that is expected to close here in the next month or so. If you have questions about that, we do have representatives with Signature on the line. Andy Hodges is here to be able to answer any questions with that. Going to the details of the development agreement, the main ones there, the expectation is to complete the improvements by the end of the year. Again, this is our standard sliding scale 5-year TIF rebate. Staff does do estimates as to what the expected TIF rebate schedule would be for this project. We were assuming a $1.37 million increase in building valuation. Over the 5-year sliding scale, we're estimating $93,000 in TIF rebate payments to be made once the taxes increase. And then also after the 5-year period is over, this project would be generating an additional $48,000 of property taxes for all the governments there. So the improvements is beneficial to the community. That ends my presentation on this project for the 7501 Hickman Road.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Questions from the council for Aaron? Okay, hearing none, we are in public hearing on this item. I will ask if there is anyone that would like to address the council on this item. Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion in a second to close the public hearing.
A motion by Obrecht. Second by Pogge.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. And I'll ask for a motion in a second on the resolution.
A motion by Blake. Second by Obrecht to approve Resolution 187, 2020.
Okay. Discussion? Please vote. And that passes. Thank you. Item 6.2 is the public hearing for the proposal to enter into a development agreement for 7501 LLC for 7555 Hickman Road. The public notice for this was also published in the September 12 Des Moines Register. Are there any objections to that notice is published?
There were none.
Ask for a motion and a second to open the public hearing.
A motion by Russell, second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote. Okay, that passes. Aaron, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Mayor. And you're going to get to see how well Nicole and I passed the presenter baton here tonight. Okay, so the second one here is again with 7501 LLC with Signature Real Estate. This is for the former Amco location right next to the former Kmart at 7555 Hickman Road. This is the property has recently been converted into a primary healthcare clinic there. So if you've been by that, it's looking great as well. The project is for the new facade improvements and the interior. Expected cost was $650,000 investment within the Westover Urban Renewal District. The development agreement details is again a five-year sliding scale TIF rebate for the rehabilitation project. Staff is assuming a $620,000 increase in building valuation. With that, over the 5 years, that would generate $42,000 in estimated TIF rebate payments to the project. And then again, after the incentive period, once the rebates are complete, the property will be generating new taxes annually of $21,800. That ends staff presentation on that one. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Questions from the council for Aaron on this item?
I just have a very quick one. I haven't driven by it. Is that clinic open now, or is it still under construction?
I believe they are open. I believe they've gotten their CO for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, we are in public hearing on this item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the council on this item? If so, please identify yourself and be recognized. All right, hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
A motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Then I'll ask for a motion and a second on the resolution.
A motion by Blake, second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. And that passes. Thank you. Item 6.3 is a public hearing to consider the real estate purchase agreement for the sale of 11.27 acres to the City of Johnston, and the public notice for this was published on September 11, 2020, Des Moines Register, and asked if there are any objections to that notice is published.
There were none.
Motion for a second to open the public hearing, please.
A motion by Pogge, second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. And Aaron, I'll turn it back to you again.
Great. Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so this is consideration of selling 11.27 acres to the city of Johnston. And here's the map up on the screen of the general location of that 11 acres. It's in the northeast part of Urbandale, right along the border with Johnston, along the Beaver Creek. This is the 11 acres is part of a 32-acre parcel that we received back in 2002 from Crown Colony Incorporated through a quitclaim deed. The sales price within the purchase agreement is $153,327.50. That's based on a recent land appraisal that we had for this for 11 acres. That may seem really small. However, all the 11 acres is within the 100-acre floodplain, so it has minimal, if any, development potential with that. This is for the Ignite Recreation Project, which the city of Johnston is working on. Their intent for the land is to possibly have fields on it, trail improvements for the backside of that project, which will be facing Merle Hay Road. I should note that if council does approve this, Johnston is expected to have it be annexed into the city of Johnston for that. So in the future, probably next month, there would be a de-annexation item for you in the future, should you want to sell the property. So that ends my brief presentation on that. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Questions for Aaron?
And I was just wondering, what will the money be used for or earmarked for?
Great question, and you would get to decide. It's not allocated for any purpose, so it would be unencumbered funds to do with other projects.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Aaron at this time from the council? If not, we are in public hearing on this item and ask for any comments from the public on this. Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
A motion by Pogge. Second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Thank you. I ask for a motion and a second on the resolution.
A motion by Pogge. Second by Obrecht to approve Resolution 186, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Thank you. Item 6.4 is a public hearing, the consideration of bids for the Parks and Public Works Satellite Facility. This is a public hearing that was continued from the September 8, 2020 City Council meeting. So the public hearing is open. I will turn it back over to our City Engineer, Dave McKay. Dave?
And
Dave, give me just a moment and I will get your privileges here.
Okay, can you see him?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, okay. So back on September 2nd, we did receive bids on this project, and we received 9 bids, and they were relatively close together, consistent bids, but we were well over our estimate. So at the last City Council meeting, we asked you to continue the project, and we looked at the possibility of using 1 cent sales tax, Dallas County 1 cent sales tax, to cover the differential. And so excuse me, if I could get the studio. Okay, the bid tab here for the project shows the estimate and the 9 bidders across the top. The first line here is the base bids, and then we ended up having 9 different alternates to try to control costs in this project. Going to a little bit of a blow up. The low bidder was Edge Commercial LLC for the base bid offer. Their bid was $896,900. And then it's staff's recommendation to accept alternates 2, 6, and 9. And so when we checked all the bids with those alternates and the base bid, Edge Commercial LLC was still the low bid with the total bid of $902,900 and no cents. So running through the alternates here, the first ultimate that we recommended was actually a deduct, and this was for polycarbonate panels that went over our 2 garage doors, and that was a deduct of $6,800. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go on. The second was to upsize the sand oil separator for the building. What we're building here today is a 44-foot wide by 80-foot long building, but the ultimate footprint out there is much longer. The pad out there is set up for a 200-foot wide by 80-foot long building. And so right now, the base bid had a sand oil separator to cover just the building we're building today. But for $2,800, we can put in a bigger sand oil separator and cover the whole 200 by 80-foot building and never have to replace it. So for a very small part of money, I think we can save ourselves money going in the future when and if we expand this building. Alternate number 9 was also an ad for skylights, and kind of 2 and 9 work together. The polycarbonate panels over the doors are meant to let light into the building, and the skylights were also for that same purpose. One thing we learned was on the Parks and Public Works building on Hickman, the new building, you can go in that building in the middle of the day and there's not a light on and it's as bright as could be. So skylights are going to be great there, and so we want to put that into this building also. So that's a $10,000 ad that gets us up to our $902,900. So that's our recommendation. The bid is, this is one that hurts, 322,000 over, or 56%. Talking about that a little bit. The architect spent a lot of time after the bids came in finding out why we were so far off. We were originally thinking that it was the tilt-up panels that, since we're using kind of a specialized panel, that maybe that was the expensive part of it. Turned out that the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing were the ones that were really undershot in the estimate. And then I think also just how small this building is, and using maybe standardized square foot cost didn't translate that smaller buildings going to cost you more. And so that's where we think the break in the estimate was. Just a little bit about the building. This is the floor plan, and so you will see that this is the bottom of the page is out facing towards the fuel pumps that are installed on the pavement out here. So we have 2 garage doors that enter into the bay area, and we end up with 3 bays. This is a double stack and this is a single stack over here. That these are for front end loaders, large dump trucks, mowers, whatever we end up putting in here. But we have 3 spaces for what we're building today. The other area over here in the corner is the break room area. This area on the bottom here, the west side, is where the break room is. It's set up for basically about 12 people. It's got a little refrigerator, sink, microwave will be on the countertop up here. This area up here is mechanical electrical room, and it will have a mop sink and such in the corner. And then our 2 restrooms are located right here. So we can come in the south side of the building, cross straight through the break room into the bay, or use the facilities, use a break room, whatever. There's also another person door here and a person door over here. The building is also designed so if we do expand it in the future, these tilt-up panels can just be moved farther to the north, and so it's a modular building that the architect did a real good job of thinking through. The other thing to note right here is that the area over the break room, restrooms, mechanical room has a concrete slab with stairs running up there. And this is a large storage area on the second story up here. So again, I think that's well planned out for storage for the future. This is a elevation. This is the south wall of the building. And so again, fuel pumps are on the left side over here. Garage doors are on this wall over here. And so we have a person door going into the bay area here. And then we have the person door going into the break room here. And again, these are the reveals that we're talking about. This is identical to what's down on Hickman. So these 2 buildings are going to look an awful lot alike, which is kind of good, a good trademark thing, I think. This is an elevation of the west side of the building. So this is our 2 garage doors that we have right here. And these are the translucent panels that would be nice, but if we have the skylights, I think we can get rid of these. So that was our recommendation. And the concrete precast panels will come down right to the top of the door at that point. Past that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Dave. Any questions from the council for Dave?
Yeah, Dave, it's Adam Obrecht. And just how much of this space is going to be, heated, air conditioned? Is it just the break room or all of it?
Being that this is going to be where we want to keep like the front end. Eventually, the thing out here is we want to have a salt storage building. And if we have a salt storage building, we need a loader. Loader needs to be in the semi-heated area. So I would look at these 3 bays as being a low grade of heat. Everything else beyond this wall would be planned to be totally cold storage. I think this is I believe, if I'm not, well, I can't remember what the heating is. I was going to say, I think it was like Corvac, but I'm not sure we have gas at this location, so I'm not sure if that's a correct answer.
All right, thank you, Dave. Any other questions for Dave? All right, this item is a public hearing. I'll ask for any comments from the public on this item matter. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
A motion by Pogge. Second by Obrecht.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. And we have 3 resolutions for approval.
A motion by Carberry Montgomery, second by Obrecht to approve Resolution 174, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
A motion by Obrecht. Second by Pokey to approve Resolution 175, 2020.
Okay, discussion, please vote. That passes.
The motion by Blake. Second by Obrecht to approve Resolution 176, 2020.
Discussion, please vote.
Would you move me over to an aye, please, Nicole?
Excellent.
And that passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.5 is a public hearing to consider the Westport Ridge Amendment to the Planned Unit Development Master Plan at 10501 Buena Vista. The public notice for this was published in the September 4, 2020 Des Moines Register, and asked for any objections to that notice as published.
There were none.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing? Motion second, please.
A motion by Pogge. Second by Russell.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. And then to introduce the item is our Community Development Director, Steve Franklin. Steve?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, all. We'll work with Nicole here to share my screen and show you a couple of drawings for this. Okay, so this is a request to amend the Westport Ridge PUD. This is an older PUD approved, I think, in 1979. It's basically the area west of 104th that you can see here on the screen on the right side of the page, all the way down to Hickman. It comes all the way up to Buena Vista. And the property in question is located here on Buena Vista Court, 2 parcels in from 104th Street. So here's 104th, here's Buena Vista. This is the existing parcel as it exists today, which is the home of Tomatich Engineering. And what is proposed is to split this lot off and create a parcel back in the back that MetroNet, this is directly related to the city working with MetroNet for their infrastructure project to provide high-speed internet as well as phone and TV to Urbandale. And this, they were looking for a site in this area that they would be able to purchase and own that would essentially serve as the technical hub of that infrastructure project. And so you can see here, this is kind of in the middle of a bunch of existing buildings. It's kind of hidden and out of the way, which is what they were looking for. The property owner was willing to sell the parcel to them, and so this is something that those 2 parties have been able to find agreement on. I want to show you one other drawing that goes with this. So again, it's the back portion of this lot that would be split off by plat of survey that MetroNet would purchase. They will need to do a site plan, and they're in the process of developing that site plan now. That will come through P&Z and then council, so you can see exactly what they're proposing. But the specific portion of the PUD amendment that's needed is, as I mentioned, this would kind of serve as their technical hub for the infrastructure project. Initially, this is part of the site plan that they're working on. There would be 2 shelters that would be constructed along with some other ancillary issues that would go with it, such as a generator and things like that, and then maybe another future building. But these are not going to be occupied buildings. These are accessory structures. And for accessory structures to be the principal use, that's not something that code generally requires. And so that's the specific portion of the PUD, why we need the amendment would be to allow these accessory structures to be principal structures on the property. But again, you will see this in more detail that will come back through as a site plan. This just kind of gives you a feel of what they're looking for doing on that western part of that parcel that they would obtain. They would build these accessory structures, and technicians would come and go to the buildings as needed to do the work. Would not be offices or something that would be permanently staffed. With that, Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval. Would be happy to answer any questions if you have them. And Ray Curtis, who is a project manager with MetroNet, I know is also on the line and could answer questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council for Steve? Okay. We are in public hearing on this item. Would anyone like to address the council on this item? Hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
A motion by Blake. Second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote.
Nicole, can you move me over to an aye? Thanks.
That passes, thank you. Item 7 is to establish public hearings. We have one. Item 7.1 is to establish a public hearing for the...
Mr. Mayor, I'll stop you for just a moment if we can have a motion on the amendment.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Thank you, Nicole. Ask for a motion on the amendment to the PUD. Sorry about that.
Motion by Blake, second by Obra.
Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 7.1 to establish the public hearing for the public pedestrian easement vacation for Lot 3, Meredith Park Plat 1. Steve's here to answer any questions if there are. If not, we'll establish the public hearing for October 6th. Ask for a motion in a second.
Motion by Blake, second by Obrecht to approve Resolution 183, 2020.
Okay, discussion, please vote. That passes. Thank you. Item 8, planning and zoning items. We have one. Item 8.1, the Platinum Development Company site plan at 3031 99th Street. Steve.
Okay, this is a project that is on the east side of 99th Street, and I will show you a drawing here. Okay, here we go. So this is 99th Street. This is the rail to the east. It's this long, skinny parcel that you see outlined in red here. And what is proposed is at the rear of this property, or the east side of the property back up against the tracks, what's proposed is for the owner to build about a 3,360 square foot building that would be built right back in this area back in here. That would be dry storage, and here is the site plan itself. So this rectangle you see here would be the proposed 3,300 square foot building behind the pavement that they have there. This would be dry storage of equipment and products with the associated maintenance company that's there. Small business trying to make improvements to the property, and this would be a way to get some of their equipment out from being in the open and enclosed in a structure to protect them a little bit better and continue their efforts to fix up the property and improve the property. I'll go back to the aerial photo here. You all should have received a letter from Mark Anderson about 12 years ago. The three buildings you see here to the north, Anderson came in at that time with a proposal to build similar types of buildings that could be rented out for storage of equipment for businesses. Currently, this is a Service Master is in this building, and then some others in the two to the north. And at that time, There are conditions of approval that were approved in 1989, about 31 years ago, that called for this type of building to be a brick or a precast concrete building, tilt-up concrete building. And 12 years ago, when Anderson came in to do these buildings, they were told that all four sides basically needed to be the tilt-up concrete, including the rear of the buildings. I will tell you, I don't know if that was necessarily the right answer, but that's the answer that they were given, and that is something that they complied with. And Mark's, the point of Mark's letter, and I did talk to Mark, I know Mark fairly well, obviously done lots of projects in Urbandale, and he is not jumping up and down furious about this. He just felt compelled to make the point that when they did their project 12 years ago, they needed to do the tilt-up concrete on all sides of the building. And the specific request here, just to clarify what's in the staff report, this particular developer for this proposed building, only the rear wall, which is the east-facing wall, is what he would like to make metal. And as noted, the conditions do prohibit metal walls, as many of our PUDs do. Mark's basic point was, isn't the purpose of documents like conditions of rezoning something that should stand the test of time? And I would generally agree with that. There are lots of things contained in conditions of rezoning that I think are important and should be maintained. I will say that what staff has seen, particularly in the past 15 to 20 years, is that building materials are definitely kind of a moving target. When I started here 15 years ago, commercial buildings, you were pretty much building a brick building, and maybe in some limited cases where there were industrial uses, such as this location, you could do some tilt-up concrete. And fast forward 15 years or so, and recently, with the Deere ISG building being tilt-up concrete, R&R's Paradigm office building, which is the architectural metal panels, and then Marsh, which is your more traditional brick building, 3 Class A office buildings that have 3 different materials. So, building materials are definitely kind of a moving target at this point. I think we have more options that are of higher quality at this point. And then the other thing that has changed from 12 years ago, which I think is significant, is that this area here, which is today the Dunlop Park, you could have made an argument, although not realistic, 12 years ago, that it was possible for Sherry Lane to be extended and Patricia to be extended to bring a street through here. And there could have been lots that could have been developed back up against the tracks here should Dunlops have wanted to sell. That wasn't likely. At this point, it's virtually impossible that that will happen because now it is a city park and there will not be any future development coming through here. So again, in principle, we would agree with Mark's comment. In this particular situation, given that there is a wide variety of building materials now, we are only talking about the rear wall of the proposed building. The nearest residential is 600 feet away and about 35 feet higher. You will never see this rear wall, pretty thick trees back there. Staff felt it was appropriate to recommend, and Planning and Zoning Commission agreed, that the rear wall of the building could be metal. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council for Steve on this item? Steve, I guess I have one question.
I got a question.
Go ahead,
for
Dave.
Steve.
Go ahead.
When this item came up earlier today, HA and I had a conversation, and it did include you, Steve. With, as you called, a library of building materials that is now being used, do we need, as a council or as a staff, do we need to kind of sit down now and take a look at what we will allow, what we won't allow, what conditions? As you said, Urbandale used to be a substantially brick community, and we have moved from that as this library of building materials have come into use. I think for me, the watershed project was Bob Brown Chevrolet. There's not a brick in that building, but that was where we first began to depart, if you will, from the substantial brick or even tilt-up panels. So I guess my question is this something that we need to take a look at in conjunction with the Architectural Standards Committee, some of the developers, your office, Steve, and maybe P&Z? What's your thoughts there?
Yep, nope, that's certainly something we can discuss with you. My opinion, and my opinion only, I still like the look of brick. The tagline that we've always used is that we're looking for buildings that will portray an image of quality and durability. And I think brick certainly does that. We at this point, unless there's additional direction in a conversation later, we're going to continue to write PUDs for office buildings and retail buildings, commercial buildings to be predominantly brick. But then I think it's certainly council's prerogative on a case-by-case basis to approve something a little bit different than that. You might recall very recently we did the Bankers building there on North Park Drive, where they came through in the front and the back of the building were certainly predominantly brick. You'd never see the back, but that was the architecture they wanted to use. And the sides were tilt-up concrete panels. So I think there's enough variation in sites that I, in my opinion, and again, we can certainly talk about this, I think continuing to hold our primary standard as being predominantly brick makes sense, particularly based on our past history. But then every project, we're going to look at the specifics of the property, the specifics of the building, and you all can certainly approve something different should you like.
Well, I agree. I think the substantial brick is a preferable way to go. But I was just wondering, do we need to have some sort of standard so that someone knows what it will be expected, or just do it like this on a case-by-case basis?
My recommendation, and again, only my recommendation, would be that we look at it on a case-by-case basis. The expectation that's out there from developers that we meet with all the time is that Urbandale does require predominantly brick. And in most projects, we get compliance with that. But you occasionally get some that want to do something a little bit different, and we tell them, let's take it to council and see what they want.
Okay. Yeah, and I would agree. I just thought it might be something to revisit at this point.
Steve, I guess I still had a question on this. Just reading through these conditions of rezoning, it almost reads like a PUD to me. It's pretty extensive conditions of rezoning that they did back at that time. But are you saying that the council is essentially going to waive the metal siding as expressly prohibited just by approving the site plan? How do we reconcile the language, the express language that's in there with?
Right. Yep. That's something that we talked about, and you could certainly make the case that really to do this, the most transparent way would be to have a public hearing and do it that way. What I think we feel good about as staff is that the property owner on either side is aware of what's being proposed. Property owner to the south did not have any issues with it. Mark obviously did and sent the letter in. And then it's just, we're talking about one wall. It gets down to semantics, how you want to break it down. It's not visible from the public street, and it says that you can do the painted concrete block or other materials, but then it does say metal siding is expressly prohibited. So it's just a matter of, are we comfortable that property owners are on either side, we're aware of the project, had the opportunity to comment, and we're only doing a wall that no one will ever see in the back, or should we go ahead and formally do the public hearing process?
Well, this is fun. I'm kind of in the mayor's camp. This isn't just a recommendation from the city that we have brick. This is a PUD that requires them not to be metal. And so we're just on a site plan going to approve metal when the neighbor immediately to the north is objecting to it. I would be more comfortable to do the formal process and go through a public hearing. Then if after that, and everybody in the area is notified, has their say in it, we approve it, then it's fine. But I would think that there'd be a pretty strong argument that if we grant this, we're waiving it in at least everywhere in this PUD, and maybe in all PUDs. I don't know.
I think that's a valid point, Ron, and we're if that's council's desire, we will absolutely do it.
I just had one other follow-up question on the site itself. of, there looks like there's a privacy fence. Is the building going to be outside the privacy fence so it would be fully visible if you happen to be in the woods?
They are going to continue to fence between the existing building back to where the new building would be constructed. So the building will kind of act as the back wall of the building will kind of act as a fence per se. Does that make sense?
Yep. So the back side of the building would not be inside the privacy fence, since we're talking about that piece. But
that is correct.
As far as the process go, I'll let one of the other 6 attorneys weigh in on that one.
We've already had 2 of the 6, right? Or 3 of the 6.
Yeah. And again, I'm not opposed to allowing the metal back on this building, but as Ron pointed out, are we now waiving it for this PUD? And that's why one of my conversation with AJ is it time that maybe we take a look at some sort of standardization so that we know, or so developers know what is or is not going to be allowed. And then the second part is, how does, Steve, the predominantly brick requirement that we have in many of our PUDs, how does that compare with our neighbors? Getting back to the level playing field, I'll just go to Waukee or I'll go to Johnston because they won't have the same stringent requirements that Urbandale has.
I would probably need to do an update to see for sure what is being required by other cities at this point. I know several years ago we looked at this, and it varied in terms of exactly how they required it, but brick was still a very desirable product in most of the other metro communities. Some of the metro communities, for example, West Des Moines, along the Mills Civic Parkway corridor, that's really more of an architectural style. It's a Mediterranean architectural style that they're looking for there. We've always tried to stay away from an architectural style to give developers and architects as much flexibility as possible, and just really gone with more building materials. But I can certainly reach out to the other cities and see what they have their codes today for building materials. That should be updated anyway.
Well, it'd be my inclination. I'm not opposed to this at all. I kind of like Dave, but it'd be my inclination to table this and suggest the owner they come in on a basically to modify the PUD, and we do it the correct way. Just because I think we have too many PUDs with requirements that I don't think we want to encourage developers to think we can just enforce what we want in the PUD requirement.
Yeah, and that just semantics, Ron. This is zone M1 with conditions. It's not actually a PUD, but it's basically the same thing. And so rather than technically it being a PUD amendment, the request would be to amend the conditions of rezoning, but it would be the same process. But okay. Yes, fair point, and we can certainly do that.
Well, could we just go ahead and approve this project as it is, and then going forward, take a look at this? I mean, I hate to delay the developer or the project for this, especially if we're going to end up with the same result down the road. So I would, if we could find a way to approve the project as proposed, but then still go and investigate and take a look at the process going forward. To me, it would be more desirable.
Here's what I would propose. If you'd want to consider doing it this way, you could approve the site plan subject to building materials that are compliant with the existing conditions of rezoning. And then if the developer would want to pursue doing the metal on that rear wall, then we could come back in and do the public hearing. And then if that would be approved, then he could go back and do the metal. That might be a way to keep things moving. And just have all the building materials be compliant with the conditions as they are today. And if he wants to continue to do the rear wall in the metal, then we do the public hearing.
Okay.
Yep, I think that's a good idea, Steve.
I like that. Because then he could do it concurrent with the project. His project can still move forward. He would just wait to make the decision on the back of it.
All right, well, then I'll ask for a motion and a second for that approval, subject to amending this to make it compliant with the conditions of zoning currently existing.
And I assume we have to do an oral motion here, unless Nicole can type faster than I can.
I think she's trying.
I think I have it approximately right for the moment.
I'm impressed.
Subject to. I have a motion by Obrecht. Second by Blake.
Okay. Further discussion? John, please vote. That passes. All right. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, regular agenda items. First is item 9.1, and that's the third and final reading of the 2018 Building Code adoption. I will ask for, first of all, is there any further discussion? Steve and Roger are both available here to answer any further questions or final questions before we go to the third and final reading.
I guess the only thing I would throw out there just to begin the conversation, Roger and I did a little bit more checking with exactly how much does this add to the cost of a home to add this requirement, and it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 for smaller homes to $5,000-ish on large homes is the cost that it would add to provide the flooring protection. So I would just offer that, and then Roger and I are happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so this is Adam, and I just wanted to, thank the chief for a great email about why flooring protection is very important. But also just had a question on Roger on this too. We talked about drywall in the ordinance or in this, but it's drywall or any other product that meets the flooring protection requirement. Am I correct in that? That if somebody comes up with something that has the same fire rating as drywall, they can use that product as well.
This is Roger, the building official. Yes, that is correct. The standard by which we're adopting is a CICC standard, which establishes it with an ASTM rating for 26 minutes with a loading of 100% loading. So if it can meet that standard, then it would be an alternate to the drywall, which is required on either the 2x10s, the I-joists, or the open web trusses with this amendment.
So, while I don't love adding $2,200 to the cost, or $1,200, I think it said, to the cost of new construction on smaller homes and maybe pricing out some affordable housing, I think we may have some other options as a city to address that piece of it. I want protected houses too. So I think my concerns have been addressed on this one.
All right. So with that, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
So motion by Obrecht, second by Blake.
Discussion, please vote. And that passes. Thank you. Item 9.2 is the franchise fee with MetroNet, and John Conyer, our Director of Support Services, will introduce the item. John?
Mayor and Council, good evening. Yes, I'm going to give a brief overview here of franchise fees for Urbandale. The city code has franchise fees inside of it for both cable and video services. That has been preempted for about a decade by the state of Iowa. So MetroNet, when they came in to do their project here, had the choice to do franchise either at the state level or at the city level. They chose and provided a letter of intent to franchise through the state, through the IUB, and to expand upon their current state franchise to service Urbandale. Spoke with our franchise attorney and they said that to do a franchise fee, we would need to pass a resolution and file that with Metronet. So this is the same percentage, 5%, which is what Mediacom is franchised for cable services. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, John. Any questions for John?
Just for a question, who sets that 5%? Isn't that something that we have some control over?
Councilmember Russell, you are correct. The state says that you can charge up to 5% of gross revenue. So it's up to you as the council to set that percentage fee. We chose to recommend the 5% because that is what we franchise for cable services today. So it would be apples to apples comparison.
And then where does that money usually go? Is that just going to the general budget or is that earmarked somewhere?
The general fund.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
John, also a little quick question. Is 5% fairly standard with all the communities around us?
It is the most standard, yes. Most go up to the state 5% required, yes.
And John, from Adam, is it just on the video services or is it anything that's on the bill if you have video?
That's a good question, Councilmember Obrecht. I would need to confirm with you to be 100% correct, but I believe it is on gross revenue. So as long as you have the video piece of it, it's on the full bill. But I will confirm that for you. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, John. Without any further questions, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Blake, second by Carberry Montgomery to approve Resolution 192, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Thank you. Item 9.3 is the purchase of police station conference room chairs, and Chief Johansson will answer any questions if there are. Now I'll ask for a motion in a second.
I have a motion by Obrecht, second by Carberry Montgomery.
Discussion, please vote.
The only discussion I would have, and this is directed to AJ, here's another one of the approvals for $11,000, and since it's over the 10, at one point we suggested, do we need to take a look at this? I certainly don't have any objection at all. And I think the only reason it becomes an agenda item tonight is because it went from 10,000, it went over by, $1,700. AJ, yeah,
Councilmember Russell, that is correct. Our threshold for council approval is at $10,000. I had a similar conversation with Councilmember Obrecht this morning and with Councilmember Bridget Carberry Montgomery this afternoon about this very same thing. We have a very, comparably speaking, a very stringent, more stringent, I should say, threshold for council approval on these type of expenditures. This is an item that will be brought up with the audit committee when we have a chance to meet later in October, hopefully, getting things scheduled to do our audit review and to look at purchasing related issues. This is on our list to bring up. In the meantime, we will do another survey of other communities. I've talked to the finance director, Nikki Lamb, about this. Our recollection was that we are on the low side. Typically, they're between 15 and 25,000. And on the high side, we have the city of West Des Moines at 50,000. I would not recommend the $50,000 threshold, but certainly at $10,000, given today's environment, that probably needs to move upward. The history on this, as was related to me this afternoon by our finance director, was that when she came here, that threshold was $2,500. And so we've obviously made some movements along there, and those thresholds were moved in accordance with council's wishes to be able to for accountability of expenditures. Certainly, based on the conversations I had today, if it's already gone through a budget process, it's been vetted by the council, included, and the funding is secured, then at some point, again, moving that threshold, council, the thought was council should give staff that latitude to make purchases such as this, things that are routine, things that are, non-controversial. We follow our bidding process, we follow our purchasing guidelines, and then we secure the best price for that product or service that we're trying to secure. So yes, we expect that here in the next month that this will be brought before the audit committee, and then if that gets their recommendation, will be brought before the full council for adjustments to our purchasing policies.
Good. Thanks for looking into this.
All right, with that, we have a motion, a second, I believe.
Yes, I think the final vote should come in right here.
And that item passes. All right, thank you. Moving on to item 9.4 is the Iowa Department of Transportation Primary Highway Improvement Project Agreement Addendum for 128th Street and Hickman Road. And I'll turn this back over to Dave McKay to introduce the item. Dave.
Okay, thank you. Back in December of 2019, a funding agreement went through the City Council for 128th Street and Hickman, and the funding agreement with our partners, the Iowa Department of Transportation and Clive. And at that time, the project consisted of adding dual left lanes in all 4 legs of the intersection and adding right turn lanes for all 4 lanes of the intersection, but it was specifically tied to the intersection itself. At that time, our contribution was $400,000, or is estimated at $400,000 for the project, and we were heavily leveraged with every grant you could possibly imagine. And so it was mostly being paid for by grant work. Over the last couple of years, the Iowa DOT is responsible for designing this project, and they've been working with Snyder and Associates. And as the project design has progressed, and the DOT is looking at the Hickman diverging interchange, which we have an approved IJR for. They started thinking from a constructability part, they wanted to look at doing the section of Hickman Road from 128th Street back to the interchange, get that ready. And so that was done at the time they go into the diverging diamond, and that's probably estimated in that 5-year time period. And so what does that involve? That involves basically widening that section of Hickman Road out to 6 lanes from the interchange through 128th Street. And one other big thing that as they got into that and rebuilding that section, something that we brought up, Urbandale brought up, was adding a 10-foot trail on the north side of Hickman Road. That's kind of always been a sore spot with Lifetime Fitness because they have a lot of fitness classes, outside fitness classes that like to go either running or biking, trying to get to our trail system, and there is no connection to our trail system. And so we pushed hard, or I pushed hard to get that trail designed into this project. And if anyone's familiar with the north side terrain on Hickman Road there with the church and a number of other areas, is really there's some areas that need a great amount of fill, certain parts that need retaining walls and such. And so it was fairly expensive to do that work with the bike trail. The other thing about the bike trail is that if we get a connection from basically our new bridge that goes over Walnut Creek, we're tied into Raccoon River Trail on the west side, and we're going to be stubbed out right to where the new interchange is. As part of this agreement with the DOT is paying for 100% of the funding for the new interchange. They are not going to be asking us for any funding for the interchange. And part of that is stubbing the trail right to them. It will be their cost to get that trail through the new interchange so we have a good pedestrian access east-west on the interstate. And if you go back to the Complete Streets Master Plan, that is something that is called out there as getting a bike trail on the north side of Hickman Road. So anyway, by adding the cost for the widening of that section and also adding the cost for the trail, the overall project cost went up substantially, and so our cost would go up too. And what the DOT is basically proposing here is that that we pay for the additional cost for the bike lane on the north side, which turns out to be about $1 million. So our contribution in this new funding agreement goes from 400 to 1,500,000. But if we don't do this at this time, I don't think the trail will ever be built, just because DOT is going out and buying all the right of way. DOT is going taking care of all the construction administration, and I just don't think if we don't do it here, we will never do the trail, and we'll never get a trail through the interchange, because if there's nothing there for the DOT to extend through, they're not going to spend a bunch of money, to put it through and then not have it connect up to anything. So, I'll stress the lifetime part. It would be great if they could be connected into our trail system. So, with that, it's a lot of money, but I think it's a really big benefit to everybody to get that section of trail through there. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Dave. Any questions for Dave?
We'll keep on the trail discussion. So east of the interstate, we need to stub from 100th Street up to that point. And is that something that'll need to be added to a CIP project in the future?
Yes. I believe in the CIP, we have it covered from 100th to 104th. We have not added anything in yet, but that would be something that would be very logical to add into the CIP going forward.
Thanks.
Okay, anything further? If not, do we have a motion and a second?
A motion by Obrecht. Second by Blake to approve Resolution 193, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. Thank you.
Item 9.5 is the engineering services agreement for the Coyote Ridge Trail. Dave, answer any questions if there are.
No, do we have a motion and a second?
A motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge to approve Resolution 196, 2020.
Discussion, please vote.
Move mine over, please, Nicole.
All set.
That passes. Thank you. Item 9.6 is to consider the funding agreement for the Walnut Creek Management Authority. Dave?
This is something that we've been doing for a number of years, but since we have new council members, I thought it would be good to kind of just go over it. We are members of the Walnut Creek Watershed Management Authority, and we also are members of the Beaver Creek Watershed Group. And there is an overarching group of all of the watershed groups in the metro area. And we all have the same staffing basically for all of the watershed groups. And this $12,000 will, Polk County's kind of taken the lead on the staffing for that, whatever staffing is needed to keep those groups running. And so this money from Urbandale, $12,000, will cover our portion of the staffing for the watershed management. As far as how the numbers are worked out, it's based off a formula that area in the watershed and population in the watershed. And I believe there's about a 50-50 weight on those two items. And that's the reason ours comes out quite a bit higher than some of the other ones that are in this in the attachment D, I guess it is. So Dave Russell's been very much involved with this also, so he may choose to comment on that, but we have been doing this for a number of years, probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's a well-organized organization. John Thompson is the director with Polk County who heads this up. And quite frankly, it's better to have them pay the staff and their benefits to manage these projects that we're a part of than having to dedicate our own staff to it.
All right. Any further discussions or questions? If not, do we have a motion and a second?
A motion by Blake. Second by Carberry Montgomery to approve Resolution 180, 2020.
Any discussion? Please vote.
And Councilmember Carberry Montgomery, I don't see that yours came through quite yet.
That passes. Thank you. Item 9.7 is consider the agreement with DeBoeuf Grinding LLC for tree grinding. And Dave would answer any questions if there are.
A motion by Obrecht, second by Russell.
Discussion? Please vote.
And that passes. All right, thank you. That takes us to the end of our regular agenda. Dave, any comments tonight?
Three things real quick. The fall cleanup, picking up the annual, I call it junk on the curb, went very well. I think it's been well received by the neighbors, and I did see an email that someone had written, and just pass on to Public Works. Great job, and very efficient to do that. I received an email from citizens, very happy to be out playing pickleball. And as I drive by, I do see that most of the time, at least 2 to 3 of those 4 courts are being utilized. So kudos to Parks and Rec for getting that done. And then, Bob, I sent you an email earlier. There's been some inquiry as to whether or not Urbandale is going to participate or allow, if you will, Beggars Night, Trick or Treat Night. And I think you said something about you were going to get that pushed out. So some of the neighbors are asking questions about that. I think we're on and we're going to participate. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, again, Beggars Night is not essentially a city-sanctioned event other than a way to push out hours for it. But we felt that we as a city certainly don't want to stand in the way. We think, and it can be done safely. And so we are, I don't know where it is, AJ, maybe you want to say, but I talked to AJ about it. We're going to put some things together, push out some information and suggestions for folks to do it safely. And, and this year more than any, if people want to have participate and want to have candy out, they turn on their porch light, and so that indicates that they're there, and folks can come to their door. And if they don't have their porch light on, ask that the trick-or-treaters do not go to those doorsteps. So it's just a basic respect for everybody, and common sense. If you're not feeling well, don't participate, and to keep the proper distancing while you do it. So but I think AJ, I'll turn it over to you. I think you said you were going to get some things together, and we'll get that pushed out. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, we've talked about it a couple of different times at staff level. We've been soliciting safety information from Polk County and Dallas County. We just received something from Dallas County today with their suggestions about how you can safely trick or treat. We've also tapped into the CDC guidelines. And so our intention is to bring to you, as the mayor said, the establishment of the date and the time. At this point in time, following our tradition, will be Friday the 30th. And the time, we usually have a 2-hour window. And as the mayor said, if you're willing to participate, porch light on. If you're not, porch light off. And we will be, once that's approved, as far as the time, then we will push out the guidelines through social media that parents and those who are participating in the Beggars Night festivities will have at least guidelines to follow. And I would echo the mayor's sentiment. A lot of this is common sense. What you have heard throughout the entire pandemic about social distancing, not doing things if you're not feeling well, essentially traveling maybe in a family unit when you're doing this, wearing face coverings. And again, I think this will go fairly well, but we're just going to offer those guidelines, and people can participate as they want to. Again, we don't control that. We just set the date and the time, and people can use their best judgment. So we'll have that at your next council meeting.
Good.
All right.
All right, Matt.
Yes, to mirror David, when it comes to the junk cleanup, I've heard only positive feedback so far. So congrats to staff so far. My cleanup's tomorrow. So after I'm done with tonight, I got to haul a garage worth of stuff out. I'm a little scared because all my neighbors have like a chair or a box. I have like a room full of stuff. So I'm going to be that guy on my street. Next, I just as an update to the rest of the council, the mayor, myself, and Adam, we did meet on human services, community betterment funding. I think the next council meeting, we will have the results of that and what our recommendations are. I just want to say thank you to staff, mayor, and everybody for very quickly turning that around. And we had a couple meetings and great conversation, and I think we'll have some good targets that we will be coming out next time. Congrats to the city and everybody else on being listed in the top 50 for money. That is awesome. Congratulations to everybody on that and the hard work and the good guidance to our community and why we ended up on that. And then finally, sorry to the council that I missed our lunch and learn last week. My professional side has been very hectic these last 2 weeks. I'm sorry I missed the conversation, but I wanted to apologize about my absence. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Ron.
I don't have anything. Thanks to everybody for all the work.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Bridget?
I wanted to let everyone know that DART will be having an official unveiling ceremony of our long-awaited electric bus fleet on October 1st at 9 a.m. At the Judicial Building downtown. It'll be a socially distanced, masked event if you're interested in attending in person. And if not, it'll also be live streamed on Facebook. So DART has been anxiously awaiting this arrival and service for as long as I've been on the commission, which is just, 9 months. But and this is a huge thing for DART as it moves forward, trying to reduce emissions, reduce costs, and just be a better steward of our environment. The other thing I wanted to bring up is related to the mask wearing. The AJ addressed email on Friday. Long story short, I was notified by some family of some residents of Urbandale of a very, very odd situation that occurred, but it was one of our police officers entered their home in the middle of the night. It was totally justified them entering the house, but it was just a very unique situation. I won't get into the details of it, but the family felt violated that the police officer entered the home without wearing a mask. So I brought that to the attention of AJ, and I think from based on what your conversation with the chief is, I feel comfortable that our police will use their best judgment in when to wear a mask when they're out in the field. So I hope that they're able to lead our community by example, but I realize there are times when it's not appropriate, and hopefully this can be just a learning experience for everyone involved. So that's all I have. It looks like you might want to comment, AJ.
No, I was just going to say that we have a lot of different circumstances, and I've had long conversations with the chief, and we wanted to give him much flexibility, but I know he had some very direct comments with the staff over there that, unless there is a reason not to wear a mask, that you will wear a mask, because the expectation is that, you set the example, that you're visible, and most importantly, that you're protecting yourself and the public. And so we believe that, when they're in the buildings, everybody wears a mask. When they're in the car by themselves, they don't have to. And when the circumstances allow for it, they will wear them. And I've seen them in numerous circumstances outside the building where they had their mask on. So they're well aware of the health risk to themselves. And, none of them want to, they've seen it, they've seen COVID in action, and they don't want to catch it. So they're very, very cognizant of that. So, we will continue to reinforce that message, not only with the police department, with all of our employees. We provide them masks, we provide them sanitizer, we provide them everything. We have got a whole stock room full of materials, so we want to make sure everybody's safe.
Well, I really appreciate your quick response to the rather odd situation that that precipitated this, but I really appreciate the chief and you taking the complaint seriously. And again, to echo what Matt said, fantastic that we made it on the money list after a few years of being absent. I think that says a lot about our community. And there was something else I was going to say. Go Junk Week. It's pretty exciting time out here in Urbandale. I think there was a young entrepreneurial boy who mows lawns, and he accidentally left some of his equipment on the curb while he was in the backyard, and an aggressive picker grabbed it, but it has all been returned to the rightful owner. But no, I think this is a great service that we provide to our community. You can definitely tell people have several another extra months worth of junk waiting to get out there. But thank you to all the public works staff and everyone else involved to make this happen this year. I know it's been a challenge.
All right. Thanks, Bridget. Adam.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the small projects that put the biggest smile on our faces. So would like to thank Park and Rec and Public Works for Gulfview Park and Gulfview Park West, getting the bridge approaches fixed in those two areas. My bike tires will definitely appreciate not having to hit those at a hard speed by anymore. But then also a thank you to Chief Holt. We'll see if I can get the picture up there. That is his staff presenting via WebEx to the Urbandale 4-H Club. That was outside at the Giovanetti shelter. So the fire department gave a great presentation on some hazards around the house, as most of these kids are spending more time at home with hybrid school models in the metro. And so I had two boys come home, tell me about all the things we were doing wrong with our circuit breakers, our fire extinguishers, and where's the flour to put out a grease fire. So the message got clear across. So thanks to the fire department for that.
All right. Thank you, Adam.
And again, I'm just thrilled with Many Magazine's list. When I heard about it from AJ, I was glad. It's as we know, it's been a few years. We were on it pretty consistently in the early 2000s, and it's a very competitive list. I think there are a lot of ratings that come out, and I get a lot of emails saying from supposed ratings agencies that say, "Oh, Urbandale's done this," but the Money Magazine one I think is one that is truly recognized out there, and they really do an in-depth review of communities. And I'm just thrilled that we're listed again, and we're the only Iowa community on that. And I think the only thing we need to say now is that we just need to get up from 47 to number 1. So that's our goal. So, but it's an indication that we have a great community, certainly, and it's not attributable to any one person. It's not attributable to any one organization. It's attributable to the environment that we have here in our city government, in our schools, in all our the various nonprofits that make Urbandale such a great community to live, work, and play. So, congratulations really go to everybody for that. So let's take some pride in that, and let's work to get it even higher the next time. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. A second.
Move to adjourn. Obrecht.
Second, Blake.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned, everyone. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
No, I'm still at the office. I just now finished my council